Yost also spoke out this week on the lawsuit he's filed to remove 2 members of the board of the state teachers' pension fund. Those members are supported by retired teachers who have battled with the state teachers' retirement system, which reduced and then suspended their cost of living adjustments for years before restoring a 1% COLA last May.
I do hope that the board recognizes that there are some serious considerations here, that we're trying to protect the teacher retirees and the system, and that they will be cautious about proceeding down the road that these 2 folks want. But let me add one additional thing. I'm angry that we've got 5 retirement systems who participate in the same stock market, and 4 of them had cost of living increases over the last 5 years. STRS didn't. Those are fair questions. There's something that's not right in the state of Denmark, but steering a public contract and having backdoor fixes is not the right way to fix it. But it does need to be fixed, and the teachers deserve some answers. I intend to get them for them.
Yost is suing to remove newly installed STRS chair Rudy Fichtenbaum and board member Wade Steen, saying they're trying to put a private investment company in charge of 2/3 of the $90 billion in the STRS fund for their own benefit. The lawsuit was sparked by an anonymous letter Governor Mike DeWine received expressing concerns about connections between Steen, Fichtenbaum, some former board members, and QED, a private investment company with no track record and a risky strategy. It's suspected the letter was written by STRS staff. There is one group with a real concrete interest in this complicated saga, the fund's more than 150,000 retirees, who get an average of $4,100 a month and don't get Social Security. Many of them have backed board candidates who want more transparency and changes to the fund. Robin Rayfield retired from the Pike, Delta, York local school district in Northwest Ohio in 2011. He estimates around $35,000 in lost benefits since then. He is now the executive director of the Ohio Retirement for Teachers Association, which raised $75,000 to hire a forensic investigator to look into the STRS fund in 2021.
We want to see a restoration, at least a pathway to restoration, at least a designed roadmap with benchmarks on it that we could say, we're making progress. You know, we're not getting a 3% COLA, we're getting a 1% COLA, or we're not getting we don't have to work 35 years, we only have to work 34 or 33. And so we want to see a restoration back to what we were promised as teachers.
The state is suing now to remove Rudy Fichtenbaum and Wade Steen from the board.
Yeah.
Those are the members that your group supports. Governor Mike DeWine has said that there's evidence that there was serious discussion about taking $65 billion, about 2/3 of the STRS fund, and putting it in a very untested program with a company that had virtually no experience. Attorney General Dave Yost said he's angry that 4 of the 5 pension funds have been able to pay COLAs, whereas STRS is not, but he's concerned about that proposal, the idea that somehow this untested program will be used, and that Wade Steen and Rudy Fichtenbaum will personally benefit from this, and that's why he wants them removed from the board. Do you feel the state is on your side in fighting for your best interests?
No, they both have pledged their support for retirees. We ought to be getting a COLA. Hey, they're at the top. I mean, they can make that happen. They clearly don't really believe what they're saying there. We think that lawsuit is misguided. That isn't what should be investigated. What probably should be investigated is Mike DeWine's removal of Wade Steen, his illegal removal of Wade Steen.
He appointed Wade Steen and then sued last year.
Illegally removed him
last year. Wade Steen then sued to get back on the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the only person that's broke the law has been Mike DeWine. Now, so when the reform group wins another election, they take a different tack to try to remove Wade, and now Rudy as well. We think that the investigation ought to be into STRS, not into the people that are elected by the STRS members. We think it's a bullying tactic or whatever. we're not going to lie down for it. The interesting thing there, Karen, is that the removal of board members is directly contrary to what the legislative intent was. They have 7 elected members and only 4 political appointees. To remove a person who is properly elected to the board is overturning the will of the people. I saw where Mr. Yost said yesterday, I believe, that he supports the retirees, and yet 85% of the members have voted for the current slate of members serving. And overturning the will of the people is not supporting them.
Is there a concern perhaps on his part or others that you're backing candidates who are going to put you through changes into an untested program and something that will actually make things worse for you?
Yeah, I would say the whole lawsuit about the untested company and the scheme of getting $65 billion. Well, the minutes of the meeting show that the number wasn't $65 billion. It was a proposal that never got fully proposed because it was interrupted, it was sabotaged by the STRS staff and their consultants. But the end of it would have been a pilot test to see if this concept worked, kind of a proof of concept. It is working in Canada. That doesn't mean it would work here, but if it works in Canada, it certainly might work here.
Do you want to see this tried here?
I wouldn't weigh an opinion on that because that's not my deal. I think all ideas, Orta believes that all ideas ought to be fully vetted, but not by the people who stand to lose the most. If you ask the person standing on the gallows, what are the qualifications of the hangman? He might take exception to his qualifications and say that's probably not a very good person to be doing this hanging. But that process of vetting, the pilot test, and it's in the minutes of the meeting, was $250 million. That's still a whopping sum of money. It's half of what STRS lost in one crazy, stupid investment in 2015 when they lost $500 million with Panda Power. So I think that number of 250 was intentionally put forward by the people saying, well, you know, we've lost this kind of money before, but this would be a fair amount to pilot test the program.
Why do you think Yost and DeWine are looking at the fund now and raising concerns? You folks have raised concerns for years. And I'll quote a line from the Toledo Blade, an editorial that said, Mr. Steen and Mr. Fichtenbaum are under legal assault because the Ohio political establishment does not want that change and will be embarrassed by public awareness of the imprudent contracts covering billions of dollars STRS has approved.
Yeah, we have a segment of our $94 billion into an asset class, and it's called alternatives. Okay, alternatives are things that you and I wouldn't invest in. They're hedge funds. But
large investors, institutional investors do.
I mean, we're not allowed to just because we're small potatoes. But things like hedge funds, private equity, private capital, those things are mega hundreds of millions of dollar investments. And STRS board members are not allowed to know what the fees, cost, and expenses are of those investments. So roughly $18 billion, maybe upwards of $20 billion are invested, and the only people that know what the fee structure are and what the expenses and costs of those investments are STRS management and not the board. So we question how they can do their fiduciary responsibility or duty even if they make 30%. But if the fee is 29%, we only made 1%.
The demographics in STRS are not great for long-term sustainability. Most of the people in the system are women who live longer than men. There are more than 100 STRS retirees who are over 100 years old. The numbers of teachers contributing has been dropping because fewer teachers are entering the profession, and you have teachers going into charter schools and private schools, and they're not contributing. That implies the fund will run out of money if it's required to do what you want to see it do, pay COLAs, and also to continue to pay health care, which it does.
Oh, clearly they have to get more resources in. There has to be more money. Whether that is a population boom, which would take what? A minimum of 6-7 years for it to even start.
Yeah.
But that's not likely. We think that if there are ways to make money, we need to investigate all of them. But more than that, or at least connected to that, is the increase in the employer contribution rate. Our employer contribution rate, when you consider the non-Social Security states, we have the lowest in all of the non-Social Security states at 14%. It's been there for over 4 decades. Everything else in life has gone up, not the contribution rate of employers. And yet the employee contribution rate is the highest in the country.
Also 14%.
So, yeah, also 14%. So our active teachers are paying the highest rate, and our employers are paying the lowest rate. And so something seems out of whack with that. Now, STRS, to their credit, and I don't often do credit for them, I'll guilty as charged, they are seeking an employer increase. Of course, the people investigating this matter could rectify that. They could assist in the heavy lift of getting the employer contribution rate increase. There's actually a law on the books, 3307.14E, that says it's already in law that they can increase the employer contribution rate. They won't even follow their own law to balance their teacher pension program.
STRS says it paid around $10 million in bonuses in 2022. And in 2023, the budget the STRS board approved raised salaries by an average of 17%, some salary increases as high as 45%. But STRS's actuary said in March that restoring the COLA permanently would add about $21 billion in liabilities. So cutting bonuses and stopping salary increases are not going to bring back the COLA.
They could triple the bonus, and it wouldn't, get a COLA.
So when you've been focusing on bonuses and salary increases, that's not what's going to solve the problem.
No. Solving the problem is, in our mind, is moving away from active investing, which is trying to beat the market, which they never do. And the definition of insanity, we know that. But if they went to an index, according to the Auditor of State, said that had they used the same asset allocations, but indexed it at a much, much lower cost. Indexes are way lower than even inside active management. We would be $12 billion ahead of where we're at. So we have thrown out as a solution, let's move to index investing, eliminate all the cost. We'll live and die with the market. We could tie COLA to the what happens in the market. I mean, a good year, hey, we're going to get a COLA. Bad year, oh, we don't get a COLA.
Well, and I think there is something in STRS has said that it can't invest in an index because of...
That's what they say.
They have to diversify.
What's the most broad, most diverse of all? The S&P 500, or the Russell 3000. So that's a straw man. They're not being truthful when they say they can't switch over to, because they're the same things, they're just bought at a much lower cost, and you're buying an index as opposed to buying, individual picks, trying to pick a winner and get rid of a loser.
There are pitfalls in investing in index
Sure.
funds too, but rather than discussing that, because there are two different sides of that and very strong opinions on that, let me ask you, do you have the support of teachers unions, the Ohio Education Association, which in full disclosure is an underwriter of this program, and the Ohio Federation of Teachers? Are they on board with what you want to see done?
The Ohio Federation of Teachers have been supportive of the reform movement. They supported the Edward Seidel investigation. OEA has not. We've met with them, and they are fully committed to status quo. Everything is fine. We just have to stay the course. And if you look at the projections, the plan will reach full funding. I don't know if they said 17 years. That number moves when we have a good year or not. But what I worry about is 3,000 or more retirees will die this year. They don't have time for this thing to, quote, get corrected in 10 or 12 years. In 10 or 12 years, I'll be pushing 80. And, I don't know. That seems like a long time to wait to get what you were promised 40, 50 years ago.
And finally, are you concerned that you might be taken advantage of because you're angry and you want change? I mean, the idea behind QED, which is this private investment company, has been explained to me as being untested, which is what the governor has said.
I agree.
And are you concerned, though, that you might be vulnerable here to people who want to see investment for their own personal benefit?
Yeah, everybody wants our money. Don't get me wrong. Everybody wants $94 billion. Who wouldn't? Yes, every night I have to think, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? What if they're right and I'm wrong? And so I do a lot of reflection and try to make sure that what I know the facts to be are supportive of my conclusions. But as I'm not an investment expert, you probably could get Warren Buffett in here and he would tell you index invest. I guarantee it, because I've read a lot about what he says. You would have other people say, no, that's not the right way to go. We know that reducing cost, which is significant in our called net return, is the cost is the key component, because everybody about gets the same return. It's just how much did it cost you to get that return.
And do you think STRS can ever get your trust back? Because it sounds like you don't trust what STRS is telling you.
Well, we'll see as the reform board takes over and as they set agendas and policies. We'll know in time. Again, something that old people have very little left of.
Investigator Ted Siddell blasted STRS for a lack of transparency, high fees, and poor performance in his 2021 report on the fund. STRS shot back that the report contained misstatements and baseless allegations, and that the fund has beat established benchmarks.